It's been just over 3 weeks since I got the iPhone 13 Pro Max and iPhone 13 to try out, and well, I'm switching over from Android. Just a quick backstory, I've actually switched between iPhones and Androids quite a few times over the last decade, and my most recent phone was a Huawei P40 Pro Plus. But well, that's changing with the iPhone 13. Let's talk design first. On first glance, the iPhone 13 Pro Max looks almost exactly like the iPhone 12 Pro Max. You get the same flat edges, flat display, same camera bump on the rear, and if you put a case on it, nobody's gonna know that you have the newest model. But once the screen turns on, you'll notice that the front camera notch is ever so slightly smaller. 20% smaller, in fact. Unfortunately, Apple hasn't taken advantage of that extra space to change the UI on top. It's still all the same. I would have loved if Apple could have fit in the battery percentage at the top, but yeah, you still have to swipe down from the top right to see how much battery you have left. We have the Pro Max model in the gorgeous Sierra Blue Hero color, and it's absolutely stunning. Apple has done really well with lighter, more fun colors this year, including the iPhone 12 Purple, which was released back in April, as well as the pink iPhone 13 here. I won't talk too much about the iPhone 13 in this video though. We are reviewing the 13 mini and we will link it up here once that review comes out. Anyway, you can see that I've applied the screen protector here, but I'm still on the fence about the case because the color is just so pretty and I don't want to cover that up. Another weird thing is that, well, Apple actually doesn't offer a case in the Sierra Blue color, so a clear case might be your best option if you still want to see it. Moving on, the sides for the Pro and Pro Max models are still made with glossy stainless steel, which definitely retains a lot of fingerprints, and it's not something that I'm fond of. I personally much prefer the matte aluminum sides that are on the base model and mini. The sizes have been kept the same across the board, with the Pro Max coming in at 6.7 inches. As for how it holds in the hand, the Pro Max is a bit large for my hand, so personally, I might consider getting the Pro instead because when I was using the iPhone 12, I really loved the dimension and size and how it felt in the hand. And since the 13 and the 13 Pro are pretty much the same size, I guess the 13 Pro might be the one for me. That's about it for the design, so let's go inside, starting with the display. This year, Apple has finally jumped on the high refresh rate wagon by bringing their ProMotion adaptive refresh rate display to the iPhone 13 Pro and Pro Max models. And this is actually one of the biggest reasons why I'm willing to go back to an iPhone. After using high refresh rate displays on Android phones for so long, it's always been sort of a lackluster experience when going back to an iPhone because they've always been locked to a 60Hz display. Well, no longer. Scrolling web pages, playing games, they're all super smooth. And while Apple has taken a very long time to implement high refresh rate on their iPhones, I think the implementation here is actually great. First, iPhone users get adaptive refresh rates off the bat. And trust me, this means better battery life. And the battery life on the Pro Max is insane. Second, instead of introducing 90Hz refresh rate and then moving on to 120Hz, iPhone users get 120Hz right away, which is of course better than waiting, 1 or 2 generations to get up to 120Hz. The only quibble I have is that the base 13 and 13 mini are still using 60Hz displays. I hope for next year, we'll see them either bumped up to 90Hz or just standardized at 120Hz. Everybody deserves a good high refresh rate display. Additionally, the screen is now improved. You get 1000 nits max brightness, and with HDR content, that goes up to 1200 nits. So really, there's no issue at all using the phone under bright sunlight, even here in sunny Singapore. As for the 13 and 13 mini, they also get a bump in max brightness, up to 800 nits standard and 1200 nits for HDR content. Not too bad. It's a pleasant viewing experience with accurate colors and just plenty of detail. Moving on, we still have Face ID here with no under-display fingerprint reader. It's a bit of a shame considering that many countries around the world are still asking its citizens to mask up, but it's actually less of a problem if you're already in the Apple ecosystem and have an Apple Watch to help unlock your iPhone when you're wearing a mask. That being said, there was actually a problem with connecting your Apple Watch and using it for unlock with the new 13 lineup. But Apple has fixed that in a software update, so if you haven't updated to iOS 15.0.1 or 0.2 now actually, you should get that done ASAP. Inside, the phone's powered by the new A15 Bionic with a 6-core CPU, 5-core GPU, and 16-core neural engine. RAM hasn't changed from the iPhone 12 or 12 Pro lineup, with the Pro and Pro Max models still getting 6GB of RAM across all storage options. Storage starts at 128GB and can go all the way up to a whopping 1TB. The one we have here is the 512GB model, and honestly, I think that this is enough for most people. The only time I can see the 1TB model actually being useful is if you plan on shooting a lot of ProRes video. Speaking of which, ProRes video is still not available at the time of this video's filming, but it will be added in a future software update. Although, if you really can't wait to try it out, you can download the iOS 15.1 beta and try it out there. My only advice about which storage size to pick is to not pick the 128GB model, especially if you are interested in shooting in ProRes, because for that model, you are limited to 1080p at 30 frames per second instead of the 4K 30fps that you will get with all other storage models. It's most likely because of storage limitations, because video shot in ProRes is actually quite large. We did a quick test with Geekbench and our unit scored a single core score of 1730 and a multi-core score of 4514. It's pretty in line with what others have recorded, and compared to other flagships like the Samsung S21 Ultra, it's a rather big difference. The single core score even managed to beat out the iPad Pro M1 2021, although the multi-core score on that was much better than the 13 Pro Max. The iPhone 13 lineup also comes with 5G and Wi-Fi 6 support, which means that if you have a compatible mobile plan or a Wi-Fi 6 router at home, you'll be able to enjoy the same fast speeds as from the iPhone 12 lineup. There are stereo speakers on top as well as at the bottom near the lightning charging port, and they're pretty good. You won't have any problems if you decide not to use earbuds when watching movies or shows or playing games and the likes. We now come to the cameras, and this is, again, another big improvement. All three lenses on the back are new, with the 12MP telephoto, wide and ultra-wide lenses all being redesigned. The camera bump is larger than the one on the 12, 12 Pro and 12 Pro Max to accommodate all the new tech that's being squeezed in here, and there's a lot. For one, the only real difference between the Pro and Pro Max models now is actually the size, and of course the batteries as well. The cameras are now identical across the two, which is fantastic. It kinda just solidifies my decision to go for the Pro instead of the Pro Max actually. Additionally, you get 3x optical zoom compared to 2.5x on the Pro Max model, Smart HDR4, which is an improvement over Smart HDR3, and the ability to shoot in macro mode. Now, there is that issue with the cameras automatically switching to macro mode and no way for the user to switch back, which is a bit of a pain. I'm definitely looking forward to that software update from Apple to kind of introduce the option to switch back out of macro mode. Apple has also introduced photographic styles. You get to choose between standard, vibrant, rich contrast, warm, and cool. Here are some photos I took with all the different styles. Personally, I preferred either sticking to standard or vibrant. Rich contrast was a bit too dark and contrasty for my liking, but hey, it'll definitely work in different circumstances. Since we're still somewhat discouraged from going out here in Singapore, I didn't have all that many opportunities to go out and take photos, but here are some that I took with the 13 Pro Max. I think overall, you get an amazing amount of detail and sharpness. Just look at that foam on one of the dishes I had outside. You can see individual bubbles without it devolving into a blurred mess. The macro mode is also very good. You can't go quite as close as some other phones out there, but you get plenty of detail. Just look at the grooves on the metal, they're all distinct and visible. Autofocusing, even in low light situations, is still very snappy, and of course, the performance in low light situations is still really good. I'm personally not much of a video person, so I didn't really take a lot of videos with the 13 Pro Max, but with the introduction of cinematic mode and rack focusing now being possible, this actually opens up kind of a lot of doors for people who want to vlog with their phone or people who want to start taking more cinematic videos but don't have a proper camera yet. Lastly, we come to battery life, and this is actually the biggest reason, or one of the biggest reasons at least, why I'm going to change to the iPhone. I didn't do tests like running videos on 5G for 12 or 13 hours because I think that's just not how a lot of people actually use their phones in real life situations. So I did two different tests. I basically charged the phone to full, unplugged the charger and went about my day. I did two separate tests, one over the weekend where I would be using my phone more, and one during the week where I was, at work and I would be spending most of my time on the computer. Now, the test over the weekend went something like this. I unplugged the charger at 12 midnight on Saturday morning, and I chalked up around 5 hours and 37 minutes of screen on time during that day. I didn't charge it overnight though, I just left it be. On Sunday, I chalked up another 4 hours and 17 minutes of screen on time. And around 11 PM at night on Sunday, I still had slightly under 20% of battery left. It's crazy. I don't think I have ever gone almost 48 hours on a single charge on any phone before. Of course, I didn't do anything too draining or taxing with the phone. It was mostly just web browsing, surfing on Reddit, and messaging my family and friends. But still, the performance is really quite incredible. As for the weekday test, I averaged around 2 hours and 50-ish minutes of screen on time a day, and clearly it still went the full 2 days on a single charge. So yeah, just really impressive. Even if you are a more intensive user, I'm very, very sure that you will get at least a full day of use out of a single charge on the 13 Pro Max. Starting at 1,799 Singapore dollars and going up to $2,629, it's not cheap. But then again, it's Apple. Their flagship products have never really been cheap or affordable before. You're paying for a certain level of quality, and all I can say is that throughout the years, iPhones have really been some of the most premium phones I have held. So yeah, I guess for me, it's buy Android, hello iPhone. At least for now, until a more impressive Android phone comes out, which I'm hoping it does, because, competition is always good for the consumer. Anyway, those are my thoughts on the new iPhone 13 Pro Max. If you guys have any comments or questions, leave them down below. Don't forget to subscribe to us and like this video. Till next one, see you guys!